What's up, guys? Welcome to NFDTV Canes all day. If you rocking with the you know what to do. Hit that like and subscribe button so you never miss out on a video. Matt, how you living? How you feeling? Hello? Hello?
Hey, what's up?
Matt, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
All right, good deal. All right, guys. So today we're going to talk about recruiting. I got my guy Matt from Canes Insight. He's going to give us some insight. Look at that insight into what he's been seeing with the prospects of Miami's 2021 class and things like that. All of Matt's information will be linked in the description. So if you guys want to check out some good Miami Hurricanes content, especially when it comes to recruiting, Matt's Twitter and links to Canes Insight is in the description. Matt, how you doing today, brother?
I'm doing pretty good, man. Just, figuring out something to do on Saturday since we don't got a Canes game.
Well, I'm telling you what you should do. You should get you something nice, get you some nice food, some popcorn, some drinks, call the family around, and watch the massacre, Clemson versus Florida State, because I think it's gonna be pretty entertaining.
Oh, there's no way I'm missing that.
that was gonna be good, man. Real quick, guys, or real quick, Matt, go ahead and let the people tell the people what you do for Canes Insight.
Yeah, so basically over at Canes Insight, I talk, write about the Canes, focus a little bit more on recruiting. I'm out at a bunch of high school games, and when there are camps, I'm out at camps. Get interviews with some guys, getting video, getting pictures, doing some player evaluations, all that stuff.
All right, guys, and like I said, you can find all of Matt's content and a way to get to his content. The link will be in the description. Real quick, before we dive into recruiting, I feel like, especially me and you, we're heavy on Twitter and talking to different people. When you look at Miami being 7-1, there's two types of people. There's people who are like, we're 7-1, but we're going to lose to the better teams. And there's people like, hey, we're 7-1. We were trash last year. We're winning this year. Why are you complaining? Matt, what do you think about Miami, and what do you think about what Miami has done so far this season with them right now being at 7-1?
Well, I think that to be negative, that's not me, man. I'm looking at this team, and in 8 games, they've already won more games than they did in a 13-game season last year. I'm looking at a team with a top 15 recruiting class in the country and the 2 top players in the state of Florida. Like, this is a team with momentum. This is a team that, is moving in the right direction, and I'm not going to be a negative guy. I know all the people saying, what if you didn't have De'Aaron King? I don't care what would happen if we didn't have De'Aaron King, because you do have De'Aaron King. So I think that's just a silly talking point.
I agree. That is the craziest thing to me. It's like last year, and I hear that notion a lot. Well, Miami's winning now, but what happens after De'Aaron King? And I'm like, we were losing games last year, and you were mad that we couldn't win. Now we're winning, and you want to say winning isn't good enough. What's going to happen next year? I'm like, just enjoy it. Now, I do think there's things that Miami can improve on, and I think that we got to get better, especially these last couple games that are played. But right now, 7-1, you're not going to hear me complain a lot. Just to speak on the season, if there was one thing you think Miami needs to improve on, what I would say improve on these last couple games, what do you think it would be?
I think that the biggest thing is probably, for me at least, offensive line depth is just that it concerns me. You really saw it challenged last week in the Virginia Tech game. They had 6 guys out there. A lot of that is because of the COVID issues. But, if you look back to tie us into recruiting a little bit, like you look back at like that 2017 class, you brought in 3 offensive linemen, and Corey Gainer's the only one who's ever gotten any meaningful snaps. And those would be your 4th-year guys. Those would be your seniors right now. And that's just a wasted class, really. And then you look at like another weak position would be linebacker. That's not living up to our expectations. You look at the 2018 class, which would be the juniors, and that was just Patrick Joyner, who spent his entire career jumping back from defensive end and linebacker. So I think that you need to start building better depth at those positions, which is, that's going to come through recruiting and making better evaluations, because you're seeing what happens when you don't have, upperclassmen at those positions.
All right, and I think that's a really good answer there, and I think that's what Miami, and I agree with you on that. I think that's where Miami, I guess that's what separates the Clemsons from Miami right now is, we don't have the depth that we need, and that's what I like to tell people is, and that's, I'm not happy that we canceled games, but I was telling people like, listen, we don't have the depth that these other teams have. So I'm surprised that we ended up canceling the games this fast with the amount of people that were on the sickness list is what I'm just going to call it because of YouTube. But I agree with you. I think now we got to look into one, I want to see us finish the season on some type of a winning streak, win a bowl game, but also start to get that depth that you're talking about. And that's going to start with the recruiting class. And I want to get into the recruiting, but let's talk about some news that happened last week. And I definitely want your opinion because you're around the recruiting landscape more than I am. What was your thoughts on Miami in Tim Burns Jr., whether he was let go, whether he decommitted? What was your thoughts on that whole situation? And what do you say to the people that says Miami right now has no committed cornerbacks in his next class?
Well, you're not really going to hear me defending the cornerback recruiting because it has not been up to the standard that you would expect. The Tim Burns situation, that was a head scratcher to me. I'm a Tim Burns fan. I on his side, but I really like the way he plays and is a really feisty man-to-man corner, that can really stick with guys and sticks with some really talented receivers down here. I mean, from a standpoint of, going against Clemson, I mean, yeah, he's probably not going to help you much in that because, he's not someone who can play on the outside against bigger receivers. He'd be a hindrance from that standpoint. But my issue is right now you do have no other corners, and I'm not seeing a bunch of great options right now. I'm seeing a bunch of in-state guys that are committed to other schools. So, I mean, you could try to flip them, and there's some talk of that, but I don't see a great plan moving forward at the cornerback position right now. And I hope I'm wrong. I hope that there is something that I'm just not aware of. Because if not, then that's good. This is going to be a really confusing decision.
All right. And when I say things like this, I always like to preface it by saying, we're just looking at what we see and we're just having talk. We're not reporting anything. We're just having talk. But why do you think it's been such a struggle to recruit top corners that's around our home state? Why do you think that's been tough for us to do?
Yeah, well, there's a couple of reasons. Well, the first thing is like cornerback is such a high valued position that, when the top guys, you're going to have to fight off the top schools for them. You're not going to be able to really find elite corners, man to man. Like that's pretty easy to spot those guys in camp settings, going up against top receivers. So usually a lot of these, under the radar guys are probably not at that elite level that you see at like Ohio State and Alabama, like those schools. They're usually getting the best guys. So to get the best guys, you got to go against the best. And aside from the fact that, you haven't been winning, there's just, SEC recruiting is different. And that's one reason. Outside of that is, recruiting is a skill, from a coaching standpoint. And we've seen a lack of that skill from the cornerbacks coach right now, Mike Rumpf. For whatever reason, he just doesn't seem to have that skill. He seems to struggle.
Yeah, it's beginning to get a little bit more noticeable, and I think I want to see how it's going to play out. I'm very similar to what you said. I want to see, and I think Manny mentioned something in the press conference where he was like, of course we're not going to end with no recruits at the cornerback position. So if Tim Burns was let go. I'm interested to see who we're going to bring in and what can we do at that quarterback position, especially when you look at the guys that we have on a roster with us losing Christian Williams. I think the plan is to go to the transfer portal. So where are you at in the philosophy of, I think now people are trending to, well, instead of us recruiting being the end all be all, because it used to be, hey, recruiting is it. Now you enter the transfer portal. Do you think Miami can build back up to, to competing for the ACC, for winning ACC championships with building just through the portal or supplementing through the portal? Are you a believer in that?
No, I think eventually it has to come from recruiting high school players and developing those guys. I don't think you can do it all through the portal just because of how short those guys' career at your school is going to be. And from looking at the cornerback position through the portal, the only issue there is how many guys in the portal are going to be better than significantly better than a DJ Ivy or an Al Blades. I really don't know because, the guys that are better than that, why would they enter the portal? They're probably at an Alabama and Ohio State and then if not, then they're probably going to go to the NFL. It just, we could see names emerge, but I'm not seeing it right now. I think that it's going to have to come from the high school level because I don't think that cornerback is a tough position to find a significant upgrade over the guys we have right now. In the time of the portal, there really hasn't been big name NFL caliber cornerbacks in the portal.
So I mean, we just got to really just play it out. I do think we end up, if I was to guess, I think we're going to find one guy to add to the recruiting class, and then we're going to look at the transfer portal but for another guy. That's just what I'm hoping and what I'm guessing. We'll see how it ends up playing out. But this 2021 class, I mean, people can say a lot about Manny Diaz, but what he's been able to do with this 2021 class before the games were played has been pretty good. Right now, Miami's ranked 13th in the nation according to 247, number 2 in the ACC. There was some different ranking bumpings with individual players this today. But Matt, with you being out at the games, tell me a story about one of the players that you've watched, maybe a game, a situation, or just talk about one of the players from the 2021 class that you've watched play that you were excited about.
Oh, there's a few I can get to here. I'm going to start with James Williams. I haven't been out at any Palmetto games this year because they just recently started. So of the 5 stars, James is the one that I've been able to see so far this season. And I was out. It was his first game of the year. It was American Heritage at Chaminade. And, I mean, I thought I was looking at the number 1 player in the country. I really did. Just the way that his presence on the field, just from the safety position and coming down into the box a lot of times, he totally controlled the game. They had nothing going on offense. He lived in the backfield. Chaminade is not a very good passing team, and he just shut down Thaddeus Franklin, running sideline to sideline, hitting people, making plays in the backfield. I think Chaminade scored 3 points in that game, and it was a field goal off of a turnover. It was one of the most single dominant performances I've ever seen from a high school player down here. I left that game thinking he wasn't the number 1 player in the country. It was special.
So what you're saying is the James Williams hype, he's not overhyped. He's the real deal, you think?
He's the real deal, man. Like, this is a guy who last year at Western, he really changed that team and he took them to the playoffs and they won a few playoff games. But he didn't have so many of those impact plays, and that was a little disappointing. This year, totally switched around. He's back at Heritage now, and he makes those game-changing plays every play, whether it's, blocking a kick and returning it for a touchdown, interception return for a touchdown, multiple sacks, fumble return for a touchdown. blocks punts. I mean, he's making the game-changing plays every time he steps on the field, like a five-star is supposed to do.
And that's one thing that I've been telling my chat is, normally there's a lot of times where from junior year to senior year, there's a player, they get a lot of hype going into their senior year. And once the senior year hit, they've been gotten so much hype, the expectations are high, and they don't live up to that. But James Williams is a guy who people are sending me clips, like you said, block punt, block field goal, interception, take it to the house, a big hit. And it's not just like every now and then, it's a weekly thing. It's I can count on it. Every Friday, somebody's going to be sending me some type of clip that's like, look at what he's doing. And so I'm amazed by what he's been able to do. Just kind of projecting here. What position do you see him playing at Miami?
A lot of people say striker, and I understand it just looking at his body type. But knowing James, like I've talked to him a few times, he has his heart set on playing safety. He is so determined to keep his body in playing shape to be able to play safety and not get too much weight on him and have to move down to linebacker. He is so determined to play safety because that's what he wants to play, that I think that enough is going to be enough for him to stick at safety.
What is something that you think James needs to improve on? I mean, we're all in agreement that he's the real deal. He's not overhyped. What do you think going into when as he goes from being a senior to a freshman at Miami, what's some things you'd like to see him improve on?
Man, that's tough. Before the season, it would have been easy. I would have said I want to see him be more physical, but he's been way more physical this season than he was last year. I guess, if anything, I'd like to see maybe in man coverage, he could have better hips, I guess. But, I mean, that's really nitpicky. I mean, he's a really complete player.
All right. So another player that I get asked about a lot. Have you had a chance? I know you said you haven't seen a lot of the Palmetto guys. Have you had a chance to see Romelo Brenson, 4-star wide receiver out of Northwestern?
Yeah, I saw Romelo's first game against Miami Central, and I'm going to be out at the game Friday against Heritage too, so that'll be fun. Against Miami Central, I mean, he came out, and it was the third play of the season. He got behind the defense for a touchdown, like 70-something yards. He's a really complete receiver too. He was doing it all, going up and getting the ball in the air. He's got really good body control. He's got really good hands. For a big, long guy, he's a threat on screens too. He's got pretty good feet in that regard. He had a big play on a screen. And like he's a little bit of a bully out there. I mean, sometimes on blocks he was throwing guys around. I'm a pretty big Romelo Brenson fan.
Give me a guy who you've seen that you think, okay, this guy's gotten a lot better since the last time I've seen him.
Let's go with. That's tough. Let me think.
Think about it. Take your time. Shout out to everybody in the chat, man. I appreciate you guys sliding through. Right now, we got Matt from Canes Insight just talking about a little bit of recruiting. I want to give a shout out to Canes for Life. He was the first one in the live stream. So, hey, I appreciate you getting in there. Shout out to everybody who's in the chat. Keep your questions coming. If it's a good question or a super chat question, we'll get it asked. Matt, did you come up with somebody?
Yeah, I'm going to go with Alan Hay, the defensive tackle from Chaminade. This is, he's a very different player than a guy like Leonard Taylor. He doesn't have that same athleticism. But this is a really, really big kid, 300-pounder. But he's got, for a guy that big and not very tall, he's got some pretty ridiculous feet. Like, he moves really well. I don't know what other sport he plays, but I imagine he probably has a little bit of a basketball background just by the way he moves his feet. He plays a lot lighter than he actually is. And then with that size, that makes him pretty hard to move. I think that he's a pretty good complement to Leonard Taylor in the middle.
And that's one of the guys, Alan Hay, who doesn't get a lot of people don't talk about him a lot. So I'm glad you gave him a mention. I'm interested to see how he grows, and I feel like he's the defensive tackle that Manny Diaz likes in this defense. So it's going to be interesting to see how he grows. What about Malik Curtis? The reason I want to ask about him is obviously we just got done talking about the cornerback position. So one, have you seen him play? And two, what are your thoughts on him playing the cornerback position?
I haven't seen him play live, but I do think that, unless something changes at the cornerback position, I mean, you might just out of necessity have to put him there. But I think he's a receiver. I think he's too much of a playmaker to have on defense. With what he can do with the ball in his hands, what you see him do on offense in high school, and then on special teams too, returning kicks and returning punts. I mean, the guy flies. He is like a different level of fast. I think it would be a letdown if you weren't able to get other corners and you had to put him there out of necessity.
All right, that makes a lot of sense. Has been making a ton of plays, special team plays and offensive plays. So that's been one of the guys that I've heard a lot about. We're in the agreement that Miami needs offensive linemen. So we got Lawrence Seymour, we got Savion's playing defensive tackle. We got Michael McLaughlin, Ryan Rodriguez. Have you seen any of our offensive linemen that we have committed in this 2021 class play?
Yeah, I saw Lawrence Seymour play. He's a really good player all around, but the issue is because he is their best offensive lineman, he is playing out of position. He's playing tackle when he's probably an interior guy, either a guard or a center. So it's not very natural for him, but he's still out there, playing out of position and playing really good football. I mean, probably one of just the strongest guys out there. Once he gets his hands on you, you're going to the ground. I mean, just from a natural strength, he's one of the strongest offensive linemen I've seen since I started doing this a couple of years ago. And he's an athlete, man. There's a clip on his junior highlight tape on his huddle where Amari Daniels breaks loose and he's running down the field with Amari Daniels to go block the safety. I mean, like, pretty impressive the way that he can move at his size. But he's just not long enough to be a tackle. But I think with his athleticism and his strength, I think he can be a really good interior lineman.
Okay. Not named Leonard Taylor, not named James Williams. One of the guys that we have committed now in this 2021 class, not naming Leonard Taylor or James Williams, what guy do you think can make an immediate impact as a true freshman?
Well, depending on what happens at the tight end position, what those guys do, whether coming back next year or going to the pros, I think Elijah Arroyo out of Texas can be an immediate impact guy. I'm pretty sure, but I'm not 100% sure. I think he's always an early enrollee, which means he's going to be able to get in that weight room. He's a weapon at the tight end position. Probably more in that Will Mallory mold than that Brevin Jordan mold, but I think that he's a better athlete. He's a legit threat as a receiving tight end. He's really athletic. He can move. He's big. He uses his size really well. He's got good body control. He's really good at tracking the football and, boxing out defenders. I think he's one of the top tight ends in the country and a steal out of the state of Texas.
I agree with that, man. I think when we're so used to the tight end position being good that sometimes we forget to talk about Elijah Arroyo and him being out of Texas, but he's one of the guys who, there's certain guys you can watch their highlight tapes and stuff, and then you just put it away. But he is, man, you can watch it over and over again. You're going to see one-handed catches. You're going to see him lining up outside, inside, on the line. He can run past defenders. He's good at finding the zone. He's going to be a good target for whoever's playing quarterback for Miami next year. If he is an early enrollee, which I think would be big time, I agree with you on that. If not one of the receivers, Jacoby George or Romelo, but I like Elijah as one of the guys, as you said. Matt, how do you think this whole pandemic has affected recruiting? Obviously, can't travel a lot. The dead period is being extended and extended. Kind of tell me some pros and cons of recruiting this year, if there even is any pros.
I mean, from a Miami standpoint, there's some pros. You're talking about like a lot of guys that, this is usually around the time of year where Miami has some decommits. And yes, there was Tim Burns, but that was a special situation. Overall, you're not really seeing that this year. And a big part of that is, I mean, these guys are being recruited by schools that they've never seen, so it's kind of like it would have to be a blind leap of faith, and it's schools they've never seen. In some cases, it's coaching staff that they've never met one-on-one, and they're not going to have the ability to meet one-on-one, face-to-face. So from a Miami standpoint, just the fact that all these guys, when I first started here 3 years ago, I mean, these guys were already coming to camps and underclassmen days and all that stuff. Like, so the fact that they're so comfortable with campus, like, it's been a year since, or almost a year since they've been allowed to go on campus, and it doesn't matter, like, because, they're just so comfortable with it and they've been there so many times. So from Miami standpoint, I'd say that's the pro. If you're looking for cons, there's quite a few there too. The main thing is probably the fact that you can't get out and evaluate guys. So trying to find late bloomers or, under the radar guys, that is really difficult, almost next to impossible. But, you can do some of it. Trying to recruit a quarterback is the big issue. There's no quarterback right now in the class, and you can't, you try to recruit these guys and they've never been on campus and you have no way of getting them to campus. So that's difficult too. I think that's probably the biggest thing. It's just, because quarterback is one position that we generally rely on going out of state, not having those guys being able to visit campus like that hurts.
Well, since you brought it up, what are your thoughts on Miami's quarterback situation as is? No quarterbacks in this class as of yet. The one player that's been mentioned a lot is Jake Garcia. What do you think about Jake Garcia? And are you hearing about any other possible guys that Miami could look at that corner position or that quarterback position to add to this class?
No, really right now it's probably Jake Garcia or bust situation. And every day that passes, it kind of seems more and more unlikely. But I mean, should they find a way to flip him, he is a good player and he's at a new school in Georgia, and they're one of the top teams in the country now that they have him at quarterback, and they're rolling into the playoffs right now. He's been good for them. Look, I don't think that you need this year to reach for a guy at the high school level if you don't think that he can compete with a guy like Tyler Van Dyke, because they are very high on Tyler Van Dyke. So unless it's someone that can actually challenge him, I don't think you need to reach. I think it would make more sense to go back into the portal. It doesn't have to be a grad transfer. Of course, if there's another Derek King, obviously that's a no-brainer, but that seems, unlikely. But I don't think that you need to get a grad transfer guy. I think it'd be okay to bring in a normal transfer guy to compete with Tyler Van Dyke, because, it seems like in January they're going to pass this new rule where guys can transfer one time and not to sit out a year, which is going to be a game changer. And quarterbacks already transfer way more than any other position, and that's only going to increase that. So I think that there's going to be options in the portal, where I'm not so sure that the options are going to be there at the cornerback position. I think quarterback position, there's going to be a lot of options.
All right. So you kind of brought up Tyler Van Dyke, and, honestly, when I asked the question about the transfer portal, one of the positions I wouldn't mind getting from the transfer portal is the quarterback, because I feel like you're going to get, most of the time, you're going to have tape on the kid. You're going to know about how he works in the locker room, so you will know a lot about the quarterback you're recruiting. What is your confidence level with Tyler Van Dyke Let's see, 1 being you're not confident in him. 10 is you're very excited that he can come in and be the starter day 1. Here's my thing. I don't know about Tyler Van Dyke. I liked his tape. I think he has a strong arm. And the coaches have raved about the type of work he puts on. But he was recruited by Enos. And I look and I say, can we put Tyler Van Dyke in this system and he succeed, especially if the O-line doesn't improve, which we assume it will improve. But does Tyler Van Dyke fit this Rhett Lashley offense?
With improved O-line play, like you said, I think he does. I think if you look back to what he did last year at SMU with Shane Buechele, I think that, that's not a mobile quarterback at all, Shane Buechele. He was pretty statuesque, and they had a whole lot of success. They averaged 41 points a game. Obviously, it's a different level of competition, but still they were very successful. And Tyler, he is not De'Aaron King where he's going to run for 100 yards against NC State. No, I mean, that's not going to happen. But he's an athlete, He played basketball and baseball too in high school. He's not a statue back there. This is a guy that has really good feet. He had a good shuttle time. He can move in the pocket. He can extend plays. So while he's not that runner, he can. There's 2 different kinds of mobility with quarterback. You have the De'Aaron King where you can take off and run, and then pocket mobility and extending plays is it's a different kind of quarterback, but it's just as useful and just as effective, And I think that Tyler has the athleticism to do that, and you saw some of that in high school.
If Manny Diaz doesn't bring in a quarterback, are you confident in Tyler Van Dyke as the starter at Miami?
If Manny Diaz doesn't bring in a quarterback, that would tell me that the coaches are pretty confident in Tyler Van Dyke. My issue, I haven't seen him. I was at a 1 practice in the spring, and that's the only time I ever saw Tyler Van Dyke. He looked pretty good to me. He was the 2nd best quarterback on the roster, and you hear good things, but it's tough for me to say because I obviously never saw him live in high school because he's from Connecticut. I did see him at Paradise Camp, and he had a really good performance there. But I don't want to, I can't really say, but everything I've heard from the inside is, very positive. But what they do, if they go get a quarterback out of the portal and it's not a superstar, that might tell you, maybe, I don't want to read too much into it either way, but
this is just talking, we're just talking. We're not inside the quarterback room. You got to take it for what it is. This is just two fans and 2 guys who love the program just talking about what they think may happen or may not happen.
Yeah. And I'll just say it, like, whatever. Like, I would be confident in Tyler Van Dyke. From everything I've heard and what I saw, I don't think it's an ideal situation. Obviously, you'd love to have a big-time senior quarterback. I think that's always a more ideal situation than a freshman. But I'd be pretty confident. I think he's a talented guy.
All right. I think I would like, obviously, there's a lot of ifs involved. If King stays, if he doesn't stay, if we get another quarterback, if we don't get another quarterback. You got Perry in the room. You got Van Dyke. I wouldn't mind you bringing in another quarterback, even if it's not a superstar, but just to say, hey, guys, let's compete. Let's compete for this starting job. You know what I'm saying? And I think although De'Aaron King came over and won the job, we knew he was going to be the quarterback. But I'm from what I'm hearing, like I said, like you said, we're not at the practice, but we know the type of work he put in, and we know the type of work that got early respect from all the other guys on the team. So I think we still need that at the quarterback position, that whoever's going to be the quarterback at Miami, they've got to instill some type of work ethic. And I think the best way you do that, the most you get out of anybody, is putting them in a competition and seeing who sinks and who swims. So,
yeah, I think that's a great point. And I think just having a guy like, both guys, Tyler and Nkosi, just having them see how Derek approaches every game week, how he approached the off season, what he did, like, getting guys you know, non-voluntary practices, organizing those, the way that he watched film, all that stuff. I mean, I think that's important for the guys to see because, you know, that sets the example. This is what you need to do to be successful. I think that's a great point.
All right, guys, we got Matt on the line. Matt works with Kane's Insight, especially in their recruiting department. He does a great job, guys. Make sure you check him out on Twitter, and Kane's Insight link will be in the description. A name keeps popping up in the chat, so I want to ask about him. Kind of give us your opinion on Chase Smith.
Yeah, so Chase Smith is a guy who, unfortunately, now his season's over and I wasn't able to see him, but one of the freakiest athletes in the class. You know, he's up there with James Williams because you're talking about a guy who's like 6'4", like 200 pounds, plays receiver, plays defensive end, plays linebacker, plays safety, plays quarterback at times. I mean, he really does it all for his team in Melbourne. You know, he's someone that I definitely see as a striker at Miami. I mean, you're talking about, like, these are the type of athletes you need to compete at the highest level. This is a guy who, you know, this season, Gilbert Bryson has really elevated that striker position. But from an athleticism standpoint, if a guy like Chase Smith comes in and he prepares every week the way that Gilbert Bryson prepares, he could take it to an even other level because just of the physical and athletic tools that he has.
Man, it's crazy what GB3 has done. So if Chase Smith is close to him, we could be getting ourselves a baller. Is there any other guys in this 2021 class that you've seen play that maybe we haven't talked about that you just want to give your quick thoughts on?
Yeah, well, pretty quick here, I guess. Cameron Kinchins is one of my favorite guys in the class of safety at Miami Northwestern. The way that he plays the game and his skill set, it is just almost like a carbon copy of Jaquan Johnson from a few years ago. Really similar players, both really smart guys, both carry themselves in pretty similar ways, you know, leaders of the team, quiet but respected leader type of thing. You know, and the way just he makes plays, man. He had like 9 interceptions last year. He's got a few already this year. He's a playmaker. He's a sure tackler. You know, in the game against Miami Central, the first game of the year, late in the game, Northwestern was up by 7. Amari Daniels breaks loose on a big run, and it looks like he's going to score a touchdown and tie the game. And from the opposite side of the field, Cam Kinchin tracks him down like 60 yards, brings him down to like the 12-yard line. Just an unbelievable effort play, you know, putting it all out there, leaving it on the field to win that game. And it wound up being a game-winning play. He's one of my favorite players.
Yeah, man. Just looking at his film, there are certain players that somehow the ball finds them, right? It's like it's crazy, man. It's like I've watched a ton of huddle tapes, but he's one of the guys where like the first several highlights is interceptions or forced turnovers, and I'm like, man, it's just crazy how he's the ball is magnetic to him. So it's gonna be interesting to see how he plays into the safety room because bringing in James Williams, you're bringing in Cam, you already got Gervin, you already got Bubba Bolden who could be coming back. We got a lot Avante, who, you know, we hope that he's going to be healthy next year. It's going to be interesting to see how they manage that locker room. Is there a such thing of having too many good safeties?
Well, I mean, I don't think so. I mean, if you want guys to challenge the guys that are starting right now because their play has kind of dropped off a little bit, I don't think you can have too many. No way.
I agree. The chat has mentioned Khalil Brantley. What are your thoughts on him, tight end out of Northwestern? One of my favorite follows on Twitter, by the way.
Oh, yeah. I mean, unbelievable follow on Twitter. He doesn't hold back. You know, he doesn't have the raw ability of a guy like Elijah Arroyo, but he is a solid player, does a lot of things really well. You know, he's a pretty good blocker. He's a pretty good receiver. Just doesn't really have any of those elite traits, but he can still be he can still be a very solid player for Miami. And what you're getting here is unbelievable love for the program, a a total culture guy. Like this is the guy you want to build a team culture around. Just the way that he works, the way that he practices, the way he plays, he leaves it on the field. From an attitude standpoint, from a leadership standpoint, those are the biggest attributes that you're getting with him.
All right, man. My last question is, do you see Miami making any more big splashes with this recruiting class? Obviously, this is just a guess, just a prediction. But you're looking at guys like Terrence Lewis, who's committed to Tennessee. Mr. HD in the chat's talking about Mason Smith, who it's a long shot. Do you see us maybe pulling a rabbit out of the hat with a big splash, or do you think this team is this class is already well put together?
Yeah, I mean those two guys, like there's some contact with Terrence Lewis. There's more communication going on with Mason Smith, but I think those are both long shots as of right now. Haven't heard anything to change my mind on those guys. Mason Smith, I know that LSU is down, which kind of opens the door, but he seems to like Georgia a lot, so that's the issue there. If you're talking about making a splash, I think the biggest possible splash would be maybe flipping a corner, like a Florida corner. There's been some talk, some rumblings of a guy like Jaden McBurrows out of St. Thomas. He's committed to Michigan. He's a pretty good corner, one of the best in South Florida. But, he was just up in Michigan. He paid to go visit on his own since there's no official visits. So, that's not a positive development there. Another guy at cornerback in the state of Florida is, the trend here is guys committed to schools that aren't really having great seasons. That'd be Demarius McGee out of Pensacola. He's committed to Tennessee. There's some contact there. He's a pretty high upside guy. So I think that's the closest that we could get to, making a splash, would be flipping one of those two guys.
All right. And if you could pick either one of those guys just for what you know about them, which one do you think fits Miami better?
Well, see, this is my issue. McGee is probably more of, what we see Mike Rump want to get. He's a 6'1" corner. McBurrows is, 5'10", 5'11". He's under 6 foot. But I like McBurrows more. The issue is, like Rump talks about how he likes those bigger corners, and those are the guys that he targets. But the guys that have had the most success, they really haven't fit that mold going back to when Manny Diaz and, his staff got here. The most successful guys were Corn Elder. He had a really good year. Trajan Bandy was really good here. Corey Couch looks like the best corner this year. The only one who's really had success in that mold would be Mike Jackson. But for the most part, it's been guys that, don't fit that mold.
You know what? Now that you say that, hey, you make a good point. That's crazy. The mold that we're looking for, we either don't get them, Surtain, Marshall, or we do get the mold he's looking for, and they don't pan out. Christian Williams was a guy that fit the mold, but he left. And then you see guys like Trajan, like Takori, like Corn. Shout out to Corn, who's improving in the NFL too. I saw that too. Shout out to Corn. But you make a good point, man. So this is my last question. I'm gonna let you go, man. But you don't seem like the biggest Rump supporter. There's, just like I said earlier about the season, there's some people who think Mike Rump has done a good job. There's some people who think Mike Rump needs to do a better job. If you don't mind, where are you on that subject?
This is always the time of the year where I'm hopping off the Mike Rump bandwagon, because this is always the time of year where we seem to be sitting without any corners. Last year we were kind of in a similar situation. We had Marcus Clark committed at this point, and that was it. And you can kind of compare him to a Malik Curtis, like an offensive guy who they're transitioning to defense. So this is, he seems to pull, a rabbit out of a hat, though, and then, he gains some favor back. But I haven't been thrilled with the play on the field. I think that, I haven't seen much progression from Al Blades this year, which is disappointing. I think DJ Ivy has been better of those two. I know he got off to the rough start, but he has been, at least solid since then. I'm happy with the Corey Couch, but, I'm not happy overall with that position and the recruiting. We have no one right now. So as of right now, I'm hopping off again, but we'll see where I stand in a month here, what he pulls out of his hat in the recruiting game.
All right. Somebody in the chat said the fourth quarter rump. Rump always pulls out that commitment in the fourth quarter. So we'll see if he can do it again, man. Matt, hey, first of all, I want to say I really appreciate you coming on to the show. And second, go ahead and let the people know what you will be doing for Canes Insight. What do you got going on? I know the high school playoffs are revving up. What games you're going to be at, and more about your content that people can find and take a look at.
Yeah, so definitely everything's going to be on Canes Insight. That's the number one place to go. That on my Twitter account, Matthew_Suero. This Friday, I'll be out at American Heritage. They got Northwestern coming to town. It might be the game of the year. There's so much talent on that field, bunch of Miami commits and targets. Basically the state championship for 5A. So that's going to be a great game. And this year I started, at these games, I started taking video and edit them into highlight tapes. So you can go find that on YouTube at Canes Insight TV. I also put them on my Twitter and on Canes Insight, so you can find them there. I got highlights of Chaminade versus Champagnat, Chaminade versus American Heritage, and Northwestern versus Central. All those are up, and I'll probably have Northwestern American Heritage highlights up on Saturday, so definitely keep an eye out on that.
All right, guys, so that's Canes Insight TV. That's the YouTube, Canes. All right,
that's the YouTube.
Go ahead and Canes Insight TV. Is it popping up? This is an old one. This one right here.
There's an old Canes Insight account that they lost the password for, but it's on there somewhere.
Yeah, man. Y'all go and check out Canes Insight TV. And if you want to see some of the live action of some of these guys that we got committed, man, check out Canes Insight TV. How long has Canes Insight been going?
They started, I think, in 2011, and then it's just kind of grown since then.
Okay. Because I saw something pop up, Clinton Portis highlights. I was like, man. But Matt, y'all do me a favor, man. Go check out my boy Matt. He comes on here and he gives us his insight, and he really helps out the content. It really helps out the show. The link will be in the description. Go check out the homie. And Matt, we'll have to get you back on, and we'll see if you get back on that rump train, man.
Yeah, we'll see. Let's see how he closes out.
All right, brother. I appreciate you, Matt.
Of course, man. Anytime, Grant.
All right, chat. That was my guy, Matt. Inside Canes Insight. He's their recruiter guy. Goes to the games, watches the kids, evaluates the kids, and then puts the highlight tapes out. So I was glad we could get him on for the show tonight, man. Like I said, I'm looking at different ways. Hey, we don't got football for 2 weeks, right? We don't got football for 2 weeks, but your boy gonna be dropping the content. The content will come daily. And I'm working on some different stuff. It won't be a lot of current event news because I'm thinking things will slow down a little bit, hopefully. But content won't stop. Grind won't stop. If you want the content in ad free, you don't want to deal with any of the ads that start throughout the audio. Hey, get signed up with the Cane Gang, the Patreon squad, and you also get exclusive content, extra content that I can't put on YouTube. Let's see what people been saying in the chat real quick. Rump gets a bad rep, but the safety's not developing either. Well, I think with Rump, if the corners aren't developing and we have no corners in the recruiting class, you're going to take a lot of heat. But if the safeties aren't developing, but you see we got James Williams and Cam Kitchens coming in, you can see how some people say, well, hey, you know, we do got a generational talent in James Williams coming in. So, and then of course, you know, Rump is always going to take heat if he doesn't get big time players, because people will always remember the whole Surtain group, Patrick Surtain group, Tyreek Stevenson, that whole group not coming to Miami. So people are going to say that. Eric says Panda recruits corners, not Rump. And I've been told that. So if Mike Rump doesn't recruit corners, what does Mike Rump do? If you're telling me he doesn't recruit corners and he's not developing corners, what does Mike Rump do? That's what I'm asking. That's what I want to know. If Mike Rump isn't recruiting corners, who is he recruiting, and what is he doing to make this staff better? I'm just asking a question. Talk to me. I don't got Manny's number. Yeah, I think that's against violations. I mean, I don't think we can send Ed Reed out on a recruiting trail. I think that's against the violations. I'm trying to get this mic out of the way. So Aaron says Mike is the cornerback coach. He does recruit cornerbacks, but Panda is the lead in the last voice on all corner recruits. This chat is, hey, y'all going crazy tonight. The chat's lit tonight. Somebody said we still got Tate Martell. I don't know why his name was brought up in the chat. Mike Rump about to have that signing day flip special. Listen, I hope so. I hope so. I would love for it to happen, you know. He did get that. Hey, Christian Williams, Isaiah Dunson, the man came in. 3, 2, Mark Rump coming out of nowhere. Put it in there. Maybe he's gonna do it again. Maybe, what if he flips Jason Marshall? Oh my goodness, one can wish and pray. One can wish and pray. Listen, if he flipped, if he recruited him or he don't recruit him or whatever, but if somehow we got Jason Marshall, you may not hear me say another negative thing about whoever recruited him. So Eric Kitty says Manny has the cuffs on Rump. Andy, who is Hurricane Chris? Who is Andy talking about? Yeah, Jason Marshall, he seems to be all Gators. Long live the king, says so Rump doesn't recruit all year, but he pulls a 4-star at the end. Hey, you know? Hey, maybe I got this all wrong. Maybe Rump is just chilling. You know, yeah, you know, and they like, hey, Rump, we need him, you know. Maybe Rump is really the big dog. See, we got it all wrong. We got it all wrong. These other coaches have been failing, right? And when we need a closer, who do you call? Mike Rump? When you need the closer, when you need the job done, who do you call? Mike Rump. When it's 3 seconds left on the clock, who do you call? Mike Rump. Y'all wild, man. Hey, man, I really appreciate it. We had about 100 people in here today. As always, man, y'all make the channel go. The more you guys participate in the chat, in the channel, the more content I'm going to put out, man. And I never want to leave a stream or a video without saying thank you and God bless you. I'm out. Peace. No more defeats. If you're rocking with the U, you know what to do. Pow, pow, pow.